That's what I like.
Eamonn, how are you?
I'm all things considered, not too bad. How are you?
That's good. I'm very well. I'm very excited because, you always talk about George Best being your hero. You know who my footballer hero is. He can't hear this right now, but as you know, is Glenn Hoddle. So to have any dealings with him at all is amazing for me.
There's no argument. You're talking class here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The first time, I used to go, when I was a kid, and to go and watch Spurs, a lot of us used to go early just to see him warm up. And it was so good. And I remember I had friends that were fans of other clubs saying, he's just a show-off, he's this and that. But just I've never seen anybody with the skill. And it's not a biased Spurs thing. I mean, just an unbelievable footballer.
But when you say skill, I mean, I know what you're saying when you're talking about warming up, stroking the ball, or just slicing it, whatever. What do you mean by what skill did he possess?
He would everything. See, someone would hit a ball over, he would just trap it easily, flick it up. Yeah. It was almost like, it's like having a ball as a yo-yo. When you just see the whole thing's good. There's another old reference, the yo-yo going up and down, and it's almost like, and it's almost part of him, and it's almost an extension of his own body.
Yet he's worked at all those moves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then we would go to school then the next day and not even be able to do anything. I mean, with something we can ask, but I remember speaking to him years ago, and I said, how when you chip the ball and you land it on, it's that old phrase, landing it on a sixpence. He said it's like a different golf club. Each weight of the way you would kick the ball, it's like using a different golf club. You got some that you'd put backspin, some that you'd hit hard like a wood, a low iron, or you'd have that wedge. That would be another thing, and that was the way he used to treat the football.
Goodness me, he scored some amazing goals as well as a result of that.
Yeah. Well, apart from George Best, though, who are your favourites?
Players?
Yeah. Flair players, though, right? Because we're similar with that. We like flair.
Admiration for Don Revie's Leeds team of the 70s.
Oh, dirty Leeds.
Sorry?
Dirty Leeds, though.
Leeds. I mean, everybody wanted to beat Leeds, but
yeah,
you could make the same argument for the Brian Clough teams and things as well, and then the rivalry between Revie and Clough.
Yeah.
Clough would say that the Leeds players should have handed all their medals back because they cheated to get them all.
Yeah,
it depends on the way you see it. I mean, against the odds, Leeds was not a soccer town; it was not a football town, and they turned it into that. It was amazing, and look at the success they have today as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they were magical days. You see the time that Don Revie and Brian Clough you'd never have this happen today, when they both went on live TV together.
Yeah.
And the fireworks between the two of them was fantastic.
Just pretty direct stuff.
Absolutely. So Glenn would be your sort of player. He is the sort of player you would have wanted to have seen play Manchester United.
You do look at someone like Glenn, and there's no argument there's no debate. You're talking class, and that's always just shines out.
Okay. Should we bring him on?
Let's do it.
Pundit now, and the greatest footballer, not that I'm biased in any way, the great Glenn Hoddle is with us. Hey, Glenn!
Hey, Paul. You're not biased in any way.
No. Listen, I say that to all the footballers. I swear. Now, I
don't want to spoil this love then. Ben and I are same age, right? And when I was at school and beyond, they used to say to me, "You are so like Glenn Hoddle."
Oh, get out. Really?
I swear to God, they used to say to me, not because of the way I played, but because when I was in my shorts, and you've seen that tennis picture of me.
Yes, I have, yeah.
And you have legs as good as Glenn Hoddle.
There you go.
Glenn, did anybody ever say to you, you've got legs like Eamonn Holmes? Is that one that they used to say to you?
It's funny you should say that, Paul. No,
not yet.
Did you work on your legs? I mean, because people used to admire your legs. In those days, the shorts were shorter as well.
Yeah, they were, yeah. No, listen, back in the day, when I think about it, we used to do a few weights at pre-season, and they might have been some leg weights and whatever. But other than that, once the season started back then in the 80s, we never we never went in the weight machine or anything like that. No weights at all during the season. It's not like today. So my answer to that one, Eamon, is no, really. They were just natural, mate. They were just.
Yeah, I had oil and false tan and things like and things.
Yeah. I spent hours in the tanning shop.
Eamon, I'm guessing you were almost quite close to becoming a Spurs fan at this point, by the way things are going. I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable.
Any petty, stupid remarks after that?
Listen, I only just started. Now, Glenn, I saw you, didn't I, at the Europa League final, and you were sitting there with Rio Ferdinand. Now, Eamon has had a big problem with me since this game, and I wonder how the relationship was between you two when the game was going on.
Well, hey, listen, we've been in them circumstances so many times as ex-players and managers. Obviously, I managed the Rio England level as well. So, we're there to do a professional job at the time. But when you're off air...
That's what I mean.
That's when you really see the reactions. Rio's hands went in his head when the goal went in, because it was a bit of a scruffy goal, wasn't it? We weren't quite sure it was over the line to begin with, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we're jumping, Gareth Bale and myself are jumping up and down, and I'm getting to get... You just react like a fan. It's just as simple as that. But no, afterwards, we were fine. We had to do a job afterwards, and Rio was gutted. But it wasn't a particularly nice...
I would have been embarrassed to win a trophy with a goal like that. Embarrassed. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'm sure. But,
Did he though, Glenn, did he say congratulations and well done as a Spurs fan?
Yeah, actually.
There you go, Eamon.
It was a poor game. Let's face it. It was a poor technical game, but no one's going to remember the goal or the standard of the game in 2 years' time when it's in the history books now. And I think that's what cup finals... There's loads of times people have deserved to win a game and played really well in a cup final. No one remembers it because the goalkeeper had a blinder and the other team won. So finals all about winning. It's a bit of a cliche, but that was a typical game where we were the better side in the first half, and then second half, unlike Spurs, actually under Ange in many ways defended like Trojans, and United couldn't break us down in the end. So they deserved it.
Glenn, some players have said to me in the past, they've said, Hoddle, so good at everything. And the reason they didn't feel you gave you were recognized fully as a manager, was they said because you knew more than everybody who you were coaching, that you would be frustrated that you would stand over them and say, this is how you take this free kick. This is how it's supposed to go.
No. That was something that, listen, the journalists and the press will always, they'll always make something that's bigger than it really is. What happened, Eamon, was when you're a club manager, and we're talking about England really. When you're a club manager, you get an injury you've got an 8-a-side or an 8v8 in a possession or whatever you're doing, you get the numbers right. And then suddenly someone goes injured or turns an ankle, and you call somebody from the reserves or the youth team over to have a spare body to play so it works properly. When you're with England, you haven't got that squad. You've just got that main squad. And I was only, probably given up. I was 38 when I finished. So I was only finished for 18 months, I think, by the time I took over at England. We didn't have a reserve side or a youth team there. And there was on a few occasions where players had to go out. I don't know if it was a blister or somebody stamped on their foot or whatever it was. One of them had to go out. So I, being still fit and knowing that I could keep a standard, that I went in. And I went in as that man, if to make it 8v8 or to make it whatever it was. Yeah. And I did that on probably 2, maybe 3 occasions during training sessions.
And you were photographed doing it.
Yeah.
And you won every time. I know that, right?
Well, when you step over that line and you become a footballer,
yeah,
your pride
I know the feeling, Glenn. I know, I understand.
Your pride hits you. You don't want to let your team down or your possession team. So I did it right. I did it proper. And obviously I wanted to make a good example for the players. Sure. Normally you're asking for good examples. There's no better way than giving an example, actually doing it rather than saying it. that'll have an impact on players. So I went in, did my bit, and come out. And other players used to say, blah blah blah. It was great, and others would be a little bit frozen by it. So depended on their personalities and their characters. But I know Incy, for instance, like that. He said he loved it when I come on. He said, "Give it to the gaffer,"
Yeah.
He was
Give
trying
it
to
to the
make,
gaffer.
he was hoping I was going to foul, but I didn't. I made sure that I did it right, and I think it was stems from there, Eamonn, that they said that I tried to show. Of course, I didn't. Listen, I wasn't a great header of the ball. A good team, you have to have every part of the game function with 11 players. And, there's no way on earth, like some of the quotes I've been quoted of saying to players that this is what you've got to do. This is how you do it. Listen, players are players and you have to get the best out of them. But no, so I certainly had more patience than most coaches, I would imagine. But people would only tell you that who worked with me. So from all my clubs and with England. I didn't say, look, give me the ball. I'll show you what I can do, lads. I literally went in on 2 or 3, maybe 4 occasions when someone got injured, and I went in and did my bit as a player because I still could. I couldn't do it now.
Well, talking about doing it now, Paul and I, before we do the sports slot on the program in the morning, we always have these debates about this and that, whatever. And I am convinced that the George Bests, the Rodney Marshes, the Stan Bowles, the whatever, the flair players of the 70s and the 80s, who you will know well and will have remembered.
Yeah.
I don't care who the manager is, but I'm going to say something controversial now, and that is I don't believe most of today's managers, foreign managers, would pick these guys on their side because they won't play the system. They have to play it. It's all about a system now. And I think, and I say to Paul, I don't think the football today is as entertaining as it was in the 70s and the 80s. Am I right, Paul? You go along with it, don't you?
Yes, but I know that, well, Glenn, it obviously affected you playing for the national side, did it? But you're talking about in club football, right, Eamonn?
I mean, I'm talking about the Guardiolas and the Artetas and all these guys. I just think it's all about them and about a system, and there's just no room for. There's no point saying, "Oh, if we had George Best in our team," I actually believe, Glenn, George wouldn't get regular games these days. I think.
Well, let me answer that in a very different way, and I've answered this in a strange way. It's funny you bring George Best up. I'm going to say something controversial then, because in 1966 we won the World Cup.
Yeah,
I'm not so sure Sir Alf would have played George Best in his team if he was English.
Yeah,
and that's a statement because he took the wingers away and he made a 4-4-2, and we won the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot. We can't complain about it. Of course we can't. But you make a very good point in the fact that creative players in England, particularly, not so much at club level, but they weren't trusted through the 70s and into the 80s as well when I was playing. But let's take the 70s. We didn't qualify after 1970 when we got knocked out by Germany. And that was a better team than 66 World Cup team, really. We never, ever qualified for another tournament until 1980 when I was involved in the Euros in Italy. Now, we went through all the 70s, and what the Germans did, controlled the 70s, and they are the ones who lost in 1966. We didn't trust the skillful players, the Currys, the Hudsons, the Bowles, the Marshes. Absolutely. And I'd say if George Best had been English, I'm not so sure George would have played in that 66 World Cup team. And I think that answers it all. Because Bestie was absolutely sensational and should have played in any team in the world at any era. And it's as simple as that.
Sorry, Glenn, do you think it's almost the worst? I mean, it sounds crazy, but is it almost the worst thing for English football, the fact that England won the World Cup in 1966, because things may have changed, because that's the tried and tested way, that's how we did it, so therefore we're going to stick with that?
Well, what we didn't do is we stuck our head in the sand. We didn't move on. Like the Germans looked at it and said, we've lost. They actually then started to do things differently at youth level, and they started to control that 70s. We just said, this has worked. Everyone goes into a 4-4-2, pretty rigid.
Yeah.
And then our coaches were pretty lazy then. And it was all about playing a long ball, not playing technically, not playing these technical players. And I must admit, as a young kid coming through at Tottenham and then getting into, the first team and then getting into the England under-21s before the Inter, as a creative player in England, not now, this is where I'm 50-50 with Eamonn there about today's game and back then. Back then, the technical player had to fight against the tide. You are fighting against the tide upstream because at the end of the day, you had to prove yourself time and time again. It was a long ball. It was power. It was athleticism. It was the pitches were different, obviously, and all the rules were different. You could get stuck in and kick people for 2 or 3 times before you even think about being booked. So it was much tougher for creative players, but the way we played, that's why I always wanted to play abroad. At some stage, I knew from a young kid I needed to go abroad and test myself as a player in a different environment where anywhere but ourselves, that little bit of 26 miles that saved us in the war also isolates us a lot in many, many ways. But in football terms, we went down a road of our own where it was a long ball, it was in the air, it was a fighting football. And that was the era that I was sort of having to be brought up in the late 70s and through the 80s. And it wasn't until, unfortunately, I was at Spurs and there was Man United as well. There was great teams, Liverpool, that got the ball down and tried to play. But it wasn't easy because there was lots of teams playing a long ball game, squeezing up. If you remember, they play from the 6-yard box to the halfway line. We used to play in a 60 by 40. Both goalkeepers would kick it and you'd squeeze up into this middle central area where there's mud and there's divots, and that's how creative players had to play their name.
You know what really gets on my goat, Glenn? The creative players now are the centre backs. There's more action with the centre backs and whatever, and this business of the goalkeeper playing the ball out and all this nonsense. And like, I support a team that just can't do it, Manchester United, and I think, so why do they persist? If they can't do it, why do they persist in doing it?
Eamonn, you're absolutely right. There's games when I love my teams whenever I was a manager, even with the rules as they've changed now. But before, I wanted them to build up through the pitch if we could. But risk and reward, you've got to look at the risk and reward. And nowadays, I jump behind the sofa. Tottenham sometimes it's like, oh my God, have I really seen what's happening here? And it's not only Tottenham. It's you go and watch Division 1 sides and Division 2 sides, and right away they all try it, and they've got big centre backs who are not really happy doing it, but it seems to be vogue. You have to play out from the back in your own 6-yard box. It's like a vogue thing. Everyone's got to do it. If not, you're a dinosaur. And at the end of the day, I'll just give you one example. Newcastle beat Liverpool in the cup final, in the League Cup final, and you know what? They pretended they were going to play out from the back, and they enticed. They know Liverpool wanted to press high. They went long.
Did they?
They went a little bit longer, and they played goal kicks, and they played ball at one pass, and then they bypassed the midfield, and they won the game. And I thought it was excellent from Eddie Howe. And
there's young players around that'll be looking at that thinking, wow, that's revolutionary. The goalkeeper kicks the ball out and it goes in the air. I've never seen anything like it. What about when you were playing? Then you must have been targeted, and you knew who were the players that took, because there was one that really hurt you, wasn't there, when you were playing in Europe?
Oh, crikey, that was, But in England, the game was physical and the pitches, or, you were worried. First and foremost, you're worried about the bobbles. It was hard to play first time passes, like they're playing on carpets now. You've got this ball bobbling and hitting divots before it comes to you, and you've got like a Graham Souness or a Jimmy Case, or there was loads and loads of players that were looking to come through you and put you out the game. So
happy days.
It was a complete days. It was a completely different game to now. That's the thing that I miss. I would love to play on these carpets now.
I'll bet.
Oh, you could do some damage. You really could on pitches like that, and that like they are now. And it's great. It's great for the players. It's great for creative football. But I do agree. I'm 50-50 with modern day game, because there's games where I'm bored stiff, because I see Eamonn's right. The ball goes back. It goes across. And the most passes, if you look at the little charts and the stats, they're all centre backs. They have more passes than anyone. And I think it's how the Italians played back in the 80s, really. They played a very patient game. A lot of continental teams played that way because technically they weren't going to just pump it long like we did. Our back players have become technically so much better. And in some ways, I would love to play now because there's loads of balls where you want it in midfield passed into you, and they'd bypass you and they'd hit the front, and it was like a second ball game, and it was a bit of a fight up for possession. Whereas I love the way they build through the pitch. I agree with you guys in the sense that fanning around in your 6-yard box with your goalkeeper and your centre forwards miles away from you. I mean, sometimes I just have to pinch myself and think, what I don't see the rewards compared to the risks that it.
Sure.
Well, look, this whole podcast is about things that we like, and you're on because we like you, and we just wondered what you would like, and I don't know if you've chosen this or thought about this, but talking to you today made me think, who was the player that you looked up to or learnt most from or admired the most?
Yeah. I've been asked that question so many times, and I can't answer one person. I tell you, I was a Spurs fan, Eamonn, at 8 years of age. So Jimmy Greaves had a big influence on me. But I've got to say, you're like, there was two Manchester United players, really, Best and Charlton, that had an impression on me. Bestie, because of Bestie was Bestie and different style of player to me completely. He would go by people, change of pace, and Bestie, we all know about Bestie. So he had an impact on me as a youngster, an 8 and 9-year-old, wanting to be a footballer, training at Tottenham. But Bobby Charlton, when I look at Bobby, I was 2-footed, Bobby was 2-footed. When I look at his body swerve, I remember going in the garden after World Cup 66, after 70s, and looking at Bobby's body swerve. Like nowadays, all the skills are from the bottom half down. It's the little step overs and stuff like that. Bobby Charlton and George Best had this wonderful upper body swerve where they would pretend to go one way and they would go the other way. And I definitely brought that into my game. That was something I watched him do, and I went out. I remember going in the garden and dropping my shoulder and doing that body swerve up against Mum's laundry pole. In my imagination, that was Bobby Moore, and I was doing that. And I think Bobby Charlton, probably when I think about it, left and right foot, the goals he scored and I scored from distance, probably had more of an influence, if you like, in my game than anyone else, and although I was a Spurs fan, I was a Man United fan for one day. I remember that in the European final. I remember jumping and smashing Mum's light. Me and my dad were up when George Best went round. Bestie went round the keeper and stuck it in. I was a United fan for a day. I really was. So, yeah. So George Best and Bob Charlton had a massive influence on.
Did you ever tell him? Did you ever mention that to him?
To who?
To Bobby Charlton. Did you ever speak to him and say, by the way?
No, I think I might have done, I can't remember. I can't say 100%. I didn't meet Bobby that many times. Obviously, as England manager, I did, and it might have not been in the right circumstances. Never really had a chance to sit down and have a cup of tea with him or, meet him in a place where I had an hour with him or something where we could talk. So I think vaguely long time ago, but
yeah.
I think maybe I might have just said, that he was, because I could just see what I did sometimes was very similar. It was unique. In Bobby was very 2-footed, left and right foot, and that was the same for me. And felt comfortable hitting shots from distance. Some people go into their shell; they can't. You can just see they're not happy when they're hitting shots from distance. But I relished it. I loved it. And obviously Bobby Charlton's goals in the World Cup, Mexico, I remember one, and a few goals for United were incredible.
There's a wonderful picture, isn't there? And Eamonn, we'll put this up as well. And this is of you. I think you, when you were a young lad, and I think you're on the ground staff there. You're probably a young trainee at Spurs, and you're sitting along the edge there at White Hart Lane, and there's you on that bench. It's just the greatest picture. Watching George Best.
It's an amazing picture. I got it sent to me before I did my last book, and we put it in. I said that's got to go in. I was about 12. And we were signed on schoolboy forms. That's where our tickets were, and they were in front of the stand. So you're literally if you stuck your leg out, you could bring the linesman down quite easy. So you could smell the grass, you could smell the liniment on the players, you know, on their thighs where they'd been massaged before the game.
Yeah.
You could hear the clashes of the studs. It was such a great place, Eamonn, to watch football as a youngster, and how physical it was. But that picture was amazing. I mean, I've got to ask, I've said this before, what on earth is George Best faking throw-ins for?
Oh, yeah.
He shouldn't be taking the throw-in.
You know, it had backspin on it, though, didn't you? Well, there would definitely be backspin on it.
Backspin on his throw-ins, yeah. No, and I'm just sitting there as like a 12-year-old, just in sort of awe of him, really, in many ways. It was a special time. I do remember that. Maybe not now, Eamonn. It'll hurt your heart now, but when Man United came to town, at Tottenham, I remember as a youngster watching them games when I was a fan. There was it was different than any other team. There was an excitement. There was something different.
Magical.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the aura that they had as a club and as their players and whoever the manager was. And for many, many years, they had that, you know, and that's a credit to them. Will they ever get back to that? That's going to take some time. That will take some time. But, you know, that's certainly looking back, Bestlaw and Charlton and just the era after that as well, always had very special players. And when they come to town, there was a buzz about the place, you know. It really was.
You talk about Bestlaw and Charlton there, and the first United game I ever saw in 1972, 3 of them played, and we were standing behind this picket fence, and I just couldn't believe you could see Charlton go over to take a corner. It was just unbelievable, just right in front of you. And the reason I'm telling you this story is like you as a 12-year-old watching Georgie and me watching him. And little did I know, this is the way life is and the way fate is. His family, George's family, asked me, it's unbelievable, to conduct his funeral. So I actually had to officiate. I was the vicar, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
He didn't want it religious, and they asked me, would I do it? And it was just like, to think that your life would turn out like that, that was your responsibility.
That is
burying your hero.
Amazing. That is amazing. And you know, what a privilege in many ways for you, Eamonn. What a privilege. And that's life. Life works in synchronicities, and that's so strange, isn't it? As a youngster, you know, I remember, you know, Martin, very different to what your example is there, Eamonn. But I remember when I was sort of 11 and a half, 12, Martin Chivers had a big reason for me going to Tottenham.
Yeah.
He saw me in the game after the scouts had seen me, but they'd forgotten about me. And then Martin saw me and I'm 12. And he saw me, went back, said to them, and they went, right, let's get him down for a trial. We've heard about him. Yeah. So they'll end up going through all them years, schoolboys, apprenticeship. I make my debut at 17. I'm playing now on my full debut. And guess who's in the team? Martin Chivers.
Gosh.
Martin Chivers spotted me when I was 12 and
14 at the time.
And to turn it full circle, when I was 5 years old, I used to watch Eamonn on GMTV, and now it's come round, and now here I am working. There we are. It's all a lovely circle.
That's true. That's very true. Life is like that. It's
Glenn. What else do you like? Something. What else do you like?
What do I like? Well, I like Spurs winning.
Yeah. Yes.
I like it when Spurs win. I tell you what I do like. I've got to say, bringing it right up. 2 months ago, we took Lisa, my partner, and I have taken a rescue dog. You know, I've never had a dog in my life.
What sort of dog?
My life, mate. Changed my life 17.
Absolutely.
Changed it.
Probably I got scratched by an Alsatian when I was 4, right on the cheek. Yeah. So I think I was scared all through my school, you know, and I wasn't interested in having a dog. I really wasn't. But now we've got it. Oh my word, you know, there is something until you have that special relationship. I never believed it.
The dog. Yeah. I mean, the dog wouldn't give any other thing on earth the love that it gives you.
Absolutely. And Eamonn, we've only had him 2 months, and he's that's why a dog, particularly animals, but I think particularly dogs, they're here to teach us. They're here to teach us unconditional love.
Yeah.
And that's really, we could learn a lot from dogs, and that's hit me very quickly in the 2 months.
We speak about that a lot. Me and Eamonn speak about that a lot, about dogs.
Mate.
And one of my dogs is ill at the moment, and it's just breaking my heart. And it is this just that truly unconditional love. I think the way you can tell is that, are you now showing pictures of your dog on your phone, Glenn? Whereas years before it was the kids, and now you're going, have a look at my dog.
I can't quite put him at Bailey's now. I can't put him in front of my grandchildren at the moment because they're very special. But no, yeah.
The pictures, the picture comes out. Oh, there's another picture of him. Doesn't he look lovely
exactly, there? Yeah. No, I like that. Taking him now for walks and things like that is wonderful. And giving him the freedom. He looks at us. And it's like he's like thanking us for what we've done for him.
Yep.
Because he's in a rescue home, obviously, and it's great what they do, but it's horrible, really, in some ways. So it's wonderful, and that I like that. I like that a lot. And on a more trivial sort of thing, I like it when I actually get a 3-foot putter, and I just
okay, yeah.
The ones that you should get, Eamonn, and you're over it, and it's like, it's for £5 or something with your mate, and it's like for £1 million, and you get all nervous and you get all twitchy. I like it when I sink that 3-putter.
Look at your eyes lighting up now. Just think, I can see it. Take the dog golfing. That's the answer. You'd have a lovely afternoon, wouldn't you?
That's the one. Yeah. No, I like it when I sink the 3-foot putt, because if I don't sink it, the putter could go.
Is that if you still have it? We spoke to Sally Gunnell, didn't we, Eamonn, recently about and also about this sporting will to win thing. That I never really had that. Are you another person that it's always there?
Oh God, yeah.
Are you a terrible loser and stuff?
No, not a terrible loser.
But you hate to lose.
But whilst I'm doing whatever I'm doing, if it's golf or pickle or paddle tennis, when my knee allows me to, I want to win. I want to win, but it's more than that. I just want to get the best out of myself.
Sure.
Mm.
And in football, I was in total control of that. In golf, I'm not. It's simple as that. But it's about competing with yourself first, and you have to try and get the best out of yourself. And that's what annoyed me when I watch players now, and when I was coaching, and even when I was teammates with people. If you saw somebody not actually trying to get 100% out, whatever they're good at, whatever they do in the team or whatever, getting 100% out of what their talents will give them.
Yeah.
And I think if you have that in a sportsman, then you've got, in anything in life really, but in sport, if you actually compete with yourself and go within yourself and make sure that your pride, you don't want a ball to go under your foot or over your foot. You don't want to make a mistake. Of course, you're going to make mistakes, and it's how you react. But it's that pride of really, really competing with yourself, getting the 100% out of yourself, and then you can lay it there and go, "I've given it all." And if you lose, that's life. But I think that's
school. I went to the same school as Martin O'Neill, incidentally. So Martin and I were at school. He was a lot older. He was about 6.
Of course, you were.
But we were taught basically by priests, and we were told that if God has given you a gift, that you're good at mathematics, you be an accountant. If you're good at sport, you do this. And we were very much told always that if you have a gift, it is your moral duty to use it. And that does stuck with me. What is the gift I have? But I'm just
it's going to appear very soon.
It's very interesting, actually, Eamonn, because I do believe in that. I believe everyone's got a true gift inside them. Come back with those gifts, but sometimes, if you're born into the wrong, say you're a natural pianist, but you're born into a family that never gets an opportunity to play the piano, for instance, that gift might never come out in you. But and that's the thing. I think everyone's got a gift, and I think rather than worry too much about exams and blah blah blah, which we do, yes, they've got to do them, and yes, you've got to. Kids get so much pressure put on them about find the gift that's inside you. That it would be my moral. That would be my way of find the gift and if it means sometimes I hear I'm playing golf in charity events and I say, you got children? They go, yeah, my boy plays. Well, he plays rugby, plays cricket, plays football. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Let the sport find him.
Yeah.
And you take that down the road of any career, really, of any business or whatever. Find what really makes you passionate and what you get excited about, and you'll do that job and you'll do it better. And you'll do it better than anything else. That
thing, Will. I know, and I've seen many people throughout the years who've said, I would love to be, say, for instance, a sports reporter. You know, they could be, and you know, they know more about sport than I do or other people around would know, and they don't do it. And they end up working in an insurance office or whatever. That's a sadness.
Yeah, it's true. And I think anything that makes you passionate about something is giving you a green light. It's giving you if you're really passionate about something. I didn't have a choice. It was in my DNA from when I was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know, I wanted to be a footballer when I was lucky enough to become one. But that passion inside is your green light to go, well, no, Dad, I don't want to become in your office. I want to do that. And if that love there is for gardening, you might become the greatest, and go on and do whatever you want to do. Yeah. And
did you always think that within you always knew you were going to make it, Glenn?
Well, I didn't. You never know. I knew.
But there's a feeling, right? You think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I knew I had the talent at a young age because people used to stop and talk to my dad and say, "I've never seen anything like this," and whatever, blah blah blah. I knew I was good, but you never, at that age going through, I was just trying to survive. Every year they asked me back to Tottenham when I was 13, 14, fit, and then apprentice. And I was kept thinking, right, okay, I've got a chance here. I know I'm good and I'm better than them and and they keep asking me back every year. But you're never really in a situation where you don't know. And obviously I nearly lost my career before I started when I had a cricket ball I had a hematoma behind the eye. Playing cricket when I was 14, so that nearly stopped my career. My eyesight was 50-50. I had to lay in hospital for nearly 3 weeks in Stalford and just stare at the ceiling because the hematoma was going on. All the blood had clotted behind my eye. So that was my career would have been over before it started. So you always
cricket never chose you then, Glenn. We know that. No, cricket never chose you.
Those who have played with me would actually tell you that, yeah.
The fact that you're talking about being 6, 8, 10 and devoted to football and whatever, I just wonder what that did to your childhood, because Paul and I, we often talk about, the programs that we watched as kids.
Yeah.
And the impression they had on us. Did that mean you didn't have time for those kids' programs, or you did? Did you have a secret one? Did you have one that you liked or two that you liked?
As a kid?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I tell you what, television, I was always out in the garden playing football or with my mates. Yeah. Mum and dad would be screaming at me to come in for dinner. I'd scoff it down and I'd be back out again. And they were very, very supportive like that. Dad was an good amateur footballer anyway. So he never coached me, Dad, once, all my life. Never coached me once. Just had spent time with me. And he used to say to people, I can't do what he can do. And I was only about 5 or 6, 7 years of age. So he just spent time with me. But there was one on a Saturday morning. Do you remember the old Saturday morning? That always stayed with me.
Like the old shop or something like
before that. Before the sport came on.
Yes, yeah.
It was, and banana. It was the banana splits. And
that comes up a lot with us.
Yeah. and
that's one of our favourites, Paul, isn't it?
Yes, he's in the club. He's all right.
There you go.
3 banana more.
The Arabian Nights in there.
I think there was was it the Partridge Family? Something like that.
Yes, David Cassidy and the Partridge Family.
And then it led. But what I'm getting to is I was waiting because it was leading into the sport. It
used to be on ITV. Partridge Family was on Saturday mornings. That's right.
It. And then I remember Mum and Dad always used to have a Yankee. The racing used to be on the Saturday. Mum and Dad would always have a Yankee, and I used to say, "What's a Yankee?" And they'd explain 4 horses. And I remember a couple of weekends when they were going nuts, and I'm out in the garden, and there's big cheering and obviously the Yankee came in. But
Did you either? So when it was, this is for both of you. So when Grandstand on one side and World of Sport was on the other, and often I'd be out playing football, but then in the afternoon you'd either have the wrestling on ITV or the rugby league with Eddie Waring would be on the BBC. What would you go for?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Actually, the wrestling. I mean, the wrestling. They reckon they got so many viewings for wrestling. Yeah. You know why it was?
No,
because it was because the results were coming on. Do you remember the tape?
Yes. Yeah.
Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah. I remember. I used to sit there and just wait for that, so people would get there and engage a little bit quicker. So you'd have the wrestling on, or you're right, it was Eddie Waring with the old
the rugby league.
Yeah.
You're up and under. Yeah.
And so I used to vary that. I remember sometimes, but I think it was more the BBC because I remember the teleprinter going across, and I hated it when Spurs were away.
Yes.
Because, you'd have to wait.
You'd have to wait. You'd see,
Burnley 2, and you go, no. And then Tottenham either 1 or 3. It would be great. Yeah. So,
Eamonn, were you wrestling or were you the rugby league?
Well, the rugby league was a northern sport.
It didn't really resonate with me. I didn't really understand what was going on.
Chester or Leeds or whatever to I think be into rugby league. So therefore, Northern Ireland would have been a rugby union territory.
Right.
Therefore, that's what we would have watched on the television, which would have been on the BBC.
Yeah.
Glenn, greatest game or greatest performance that you ever had playing?
Oh dear.
So many.
Yeah. What's the one?
Oh, for club would be Tottenham, a European game against Feyenoord. We won the UEFA Cup, against Cruyff, and I think that's just one of those games. Oh dear, I've got a low battery come up here. Feyenoord at home at White Hart Lane. We were 4-0 up. I'd created 4 goals in the first 35 minutes, and just one of them games where it all just fell beautifully, and just felt so confident. Felt as if you're untouchable. Some games you had that. Other games you think, where's that feeling gone? Which had that every single game. But some games you played and you went through little spells where you felt literally untouchable. It was like you're inspired. You went into another level.
But was it because Johan Cruyff, there'd been words, hadn't there, before about this young Hoddle and who's this fella think he's going to be? And then was there something within you that said, I'm going to show him what I'm all about?
Yeah, I think what it said, I don't know if it was the press, but he did actually. But he come out and said, if you stop Hoddle, then I'm going to man mark him. And I'm thought, Johan Cruyff, man marking, don't be so stupid. That's ridiculous. Yeah. And then in the first few minutes, he was there. He was, whenever we had the ball, he was up against me. And I thought, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
So maybe, that kicked me on a few gears, and I responded to that. But I think that was probably at club level would have been the highlight, the one. And the cup final replay actually in 81 against Man City. I look back on that.
What a game. What a game that was, eh?
Yes, it was, Eamonn. Yeah, amazing game, wasn't it? And it's funny how it stays in people's psyche, even non-Spurs fans. Ricky Villa's goal, and there was one absolute fantastic. Oh, what a goal Mackenzie scored!
Steve McKenzie,
and no, Steve scored an unbelievable goal, and it flew past me. I jump in the air to try and block it, and he's hit a volley 30 yards in the top corner, and no one remembers it because of we won it, and Ricky's little slalom goal. Everyone remembers that, and it was, I think, centenary FA Cup year as well. So amazing, absolutely amazing night that was. That was one of my best games as well. Yeah.
Well, Glenn, before your battery runs out and we lose you, we nearly lost you a few years ago as well. Yeah. And it's great to see you looking so fit and so well, and I hope you stay that way. But it always amazes me, how a man as fit as you, and yet the heart attack business, it still seeks you out, doesn't it?
Wow, this is the thing, Eamonn. I didn't know until I had a cardiac arrest that it was completely different to a heart attack. The two things are completely different. It's almost like your plumbing and your electrics, if you like. That's how the surgeon explained it to me. But you're right. I was working at BT live television, actually, a live show. I felt fine. And this is what's so scary for everyone, is that you can feel. Oh, what have I got? I've only got a couple of 5% left on my.
Okay, well,
hurry up then.
Yeah, it was amazing because I felt fine, and then suddenly something like that happened. I was gone for 10 minutes. Simon Daniels saved me, the sound, engineer. Without him, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys. So yes, obviously it changed. That changed. Something like that happens, changes your life completely, and every minute is precious. My grandchildren, time with my grandchildren is extra special.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, joking apart, watching Spurs win a trophy, I wouldn't have been around to see that, which would have been a sad thing. But life's just so precious, and everyone out there, we look after our cars better than we look after ourselves.
Yeah.
We have an MOT with our car. Just go and have a check. Go and have a check, because you don't know when it's going to happen.
But look, it's precious minutes with us today. It's really
very special.
Very, very enjoyable. If it wasn't for your battery, we'd still be talking for the next hour or so. Glenn Hoddle, an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Glenn.
Guys, lovely. Have a great day. God bless.
Now, what a nice guy he was.
See, told you.
Yeah, there's a humility about him as well. There's a niceness about him. I couldn't imagine him being a manager and shouting at you and, having the sort of hairdryer effect and all that thing.
He'd use the hairdryer on himself, though, wouldn't he, Glenn?
Mm.
But he wouldn't be throwing it around. But you know what? When you mentioned that early on and said about, because there were always those rumours, weren't there, about players that would go, he's too good, and you mentioned that. And I think he answered that very well, because there's a lot of nonsense you hear about Glenn Hoddle. He's arrogant, he's this, he's that. And that old phrase, never meet your heroes. And I can honestly, I've never, ever been disappointed by meeting Glenn Hoddle. Just the nicest man.
Also, you see jealousies and an awful thing as well. People often confuse people who are just very good with being very arrogant. I don't know what proportion or what percentage of one or the other has to be, but he seems a very nice man.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolute pleasure having you on. And so what does he like? He likes dogs, which that's made my day. He's now got a rescue dog, just like the both of us has.
He liked the banana splits.
The banana splits, like us. He's going to be on our gang. Banana splits, likes dogs. What else did we get in there as well? Watching Spurs win. Okay, that's one of us.
In final against Spurs.
Yeah.
You said that. Sure.
Well, we'll have more. We should do another one. I think we should do another one next week, shall we?
Today. Yeah.
Say that again?
Yeah, nothing. Forget it. Nothing.
Okay. Eamonn, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for being so nice to my hero. I really appreciate that.
Not at all.
You didn't cause him any trouble whatsoever.
Watching and listening as well is much appreciated. Let's do it again sometime.
Things we like.
Yoo-hoo.
That's what I love.